Blood pounded in Liam's ears as he stood in the doorway of the executive office, watching the most powerful woman in the city break down in tears over the same disease killing his daughter. With trembling Janitor's hands, he stepped forward into her glass kingdom, knowing his next words would either save 2 lives or destroy his own. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. Liam Burns stood in the doorway of the executive office, his grey janitor's uniform a stark contrast to the sleek modernity of the 50th floor. The setting sun cast long shadows across the obsidian marble desk where Aveline Langford, CEO of Langford Industries, sat with her head in her hands. He should have been invisible to her, just another ghost of the night shift, moving through the gleaming corporate tower after the important people had gone home. But tonight was different. A half-empty bottle of amber liquid glinted in the dying light. The city sprawled beneath them, a tapestry of twinkling lights, oblivious to the broken woman at the top of the world. Liam's hand tightened on the handle of his cleaning cart. He should leave, continue his rounds, pretend he hadn't seen the most powerful woman in the city shattered and alone. But he couldn't. He'd recognized the sound that had drawn him to the open door, the same raw, wounded noise his daughter Maya made when the pain became too much for her 7-year-old shoulders to bear, the sound of someone drowning from the inside out. "Mom," his voice was soft, tentative. "I'm sorry to disturb you. Should I come back later?" Aveline's head snapped up, her eyes red-rimmed but fierce. For a moment, shock and fury warred on her face at this intrusion. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was hoarse, but commanded the authority that had built a billion-dollar empire. "I'm on the night crew. I usually clean the executive floor after hours." Liam gestured vaguely with his cloth. "I can come back." "Yes, go." She turned away, the dismissal absolute. Liam nodded and began to push his cart away, but stopped. Maya's face flashed in his mind, her smile growing dimmer as the disease tightened its grip, the tremors in her hands when she tried to draw, the doctor's words echoing, "Neurosynaptic decay syndrome. Exceptionally rare. We're running out of options." "Sometimes," Liam said quietly, turning back, "it helps to talk to someone who doesn't matter." Aveline looked up again, surprise momentarily replacing anger. "Excuse me? Someone who doesn't matter in your world," he clarified, stepping forward. "No stakeholders, no board members, no one who needs anything from you. Just a janitor who'll be gone in the morning." She stared at him, this stranger in workman's clothes who dared to speak to her as an equal. "You have no idea who I am or what I'm dealing with." "No, ma'am, I don't." Liam moved closer, his weathered hands resting on the back of the chair opposite her desk. "But I know what it looks like when someone's carrying something too heavy to hold alone." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Ooh, and you think you can help? A janitor? I can fix a lot of things, Ms. Langford. Broken pipes, burnt-out lights, damaged circuits." He paused, meeting her gaze steadily. "I can't fix what broke you, but sometimes naming the monster makes it smaller." The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the building's ventilation system. Aveline reached for the crystal tumbler beside the bottle, her hand trembling slightly. Liam noticed, but said nothing. "My brother is dying," she said finally, the words falling like stones. "And I've failed him." Liam nodded, waiting for her to continue. "Kellen has a rare neurological condition. The best specialists in the world can't help him. I've poured billions into research, built a state-of-the-art facility, hired the most brilliant minds." Her voice cracked. "And today, I learned it was all for nothing. The treatment protocol failed. The disease is accelerating." Liam's heart stuttered. "What's the condition called?" "Neurosynaptic decay syndrome. It's exceptionally rare, fewer than 2,000 diagnosed cases worldwide." She looked up, surprised by his interest. "Why?" His mouth went dry. "My daughter has it." The silence between them changed texture, charged now with an impossible coincidence. Eveline straightened, her CEO mask slipping back into place. "You're lying." "Maya, she's 7. Diagnosed 6 months ago." Liam pulled out his phone, hands shaking slightly as he showed her the lock screen. A small girl with a bright smile and eyes too old for her face. The tremors started in her hands, then the headaches. She used to draw all the time. But now, Aveline took the phone. studied the child's face. Something in her expression softened, then hardened again with suspicion. "This is quite a coincidence, Mr. Byrne, Liam Byrne." "And yes, it is." He met her gaze without flinching. "I've worked here for 3 years. I had no idea Langford Industries was researching NDS until just now." She studied him for a long moment, her analytical mind visibly processing possibilities. Corporate espionage, a plant from a rival company, a desperate father. She seemed to settle on the latter. "If you're telling the truth, Mr. Byrne, then you understand what I'm facing." She returned his phone. "The difference is, I had the resources to do something about it, and I still failed." Liam pocketed the phone. "What happened with the trial?" Aveline hesitated, unused to discussing corporate matters with maintenance staff. Yet the shared burden of their loved ones' identical diagnosis created an unusual bridge between their worlds. The lead researcher, Dr. Finch, informed me today that the trial results were disappointing. The treatment didn't just fail, it accelerated the degenerative process in several test subjects. Her voice was clinical, detached, but her fingers whitened around the glass. "Tomorrow, I have to tell my brother that our last hope was a mirage." Liam frowned. "May I?" He gestured to the chair. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. He sat across from her. "This janitor in her glass kingdom, Ms. Langford, in my line of work, when something doesn't function as designed, it's usually for one of 3 reasons. The design is flawed, the materials are compromised, or someone deliberately sabotaged it." He leaned forward. "Have you considered all 3 possibilities?" Aveline's brow furrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm just a janitor," Liam said carefully, "but I've worked every floor of this building, including the research levels. I've emptied Dr. Finch's trash, cleaned his office while he worked late. I've seen things." "What things?" Her voice sharpened. "Documents in the shredder bin, names that shouldn't be there, payment authorizations to offshore accounts, a consulting fee to a company called Helios Analytics." Liam paused. "Does that name mean anything to you?" Aveline went very still. "It doesn't. Should it? I looked it up. It's owned by Dr. Corbin Vance, who lost his medical license 5 years ago for falsifying clinical trial data." Liam's voice was quiet. "Why would your star researcher be paying a disgraced doctor under the table?" The color drained from Aveline's face. "You're certain of this?" "I pieced together what I could from the shredder. I wasn't trying to spy. I was desperate for any information that might help Maya." Liam's shoulders slumped. "When I heard you mention the trial failing, it clicked. What if it didn't fail? What if someone wanted it to fail?" Aveline rose suddenly, moving to the window. The city lights glittered below like fallen stars. Why would Finch sabotage his own research, his reputation, his career? Everything rides on this trial's success, unless success isn't profitable for someone, Liam suggested. Or unless the real goal was never the cure." She turned back to face him, her expression transformed by a cold, calculating fury that made Liam glad he wasn't the target. "How much more do you know?" Liam spread his hands. "Fragments. Nothing concrete, but enough to know something isn't right." Aveline returned to her desk, bypassing the alcohol to wake her computer. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "If what you're saying is true, Mr. Byrne, we have very little time. Finch is scheduled to begin the final phase of testing on my brother tomorrow morning." The implications hung in the air between them. If the treatment was deliberately compromised, Kellen Langford might not survive it. Aveline looked up at Liam, CEO to janitor, her gaze burning with newfound purpose. "I need everything you've seen. Everything you remember, every name, every number, every detail, no matter how small. And in return," Liam asked quietly, "if we can prove Finch is a fraud and salvage the real research," she said, her voice taking on a steely determination, "I'll make you a promise. Mr. Byrne, your daughter will receive the best care in the world, at my personal expense, for as long as it takes to find a real cure." The weight of her words settled between them, a vow from one of the most powerful women in the world to a man who cleaned her floor, a bridge across the chasm, separating their lives, built on the shared foundation of love for their family. "Then we better get started," Liam said simply. And with that, their unlikely alliance was formed. Dawn was breaking over the city skyline when Aveline finally leaned back in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes. They had been working through the night, piecing together fragments of information from Liam's memory and the company's secure databases. The janitor's cart stood forgotten in the corner of her office, a peculiar symbol of their unlikely partnership. So Finch altered the chemical structure of the compound, Aveline said, gesturing to the molecular diagrams displayed on her monitor. The formula that was approved for human trials isn't what's being administered to the patients. Liam nodded, his work shirt rumpled, eyes bloodshot from the all-night session. From what I can tell, he's been making incremental changes, documenting failures, then using those failures to justify more funding for refined approaches. A perpetual research machine, Aveline said bitterly. No wonder he keeps requesting extensions and additional resources. He never intended to find a cure. What I don't understand is why, Liam said, pacing the length of the window. The city below was waking up, unaware of the conspiracy being unraveled 50 floors above. If he succeeds, he'd be famous. Wealthy beyond imagination. Why sabotage your own research? Aveline tapped her manicured fingers against the obsidian desk. Because someone is paying him more to fail than he could ever make by succeeding. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up financial records. Here, every time the trial shows disappointing results, Helios Analytics receives a substantial payment, and a week later, similar amounts appear in an offshore account linked to Finch. But who benefits from the research failing? Liam asked. Pharmaceutical companies with profitable symptom management drugs, competing research facilities, corporate rivals. Aveline's voice hardened. I've made enemies, Mr. Byrne. Powerful ones who would delight in seeing me pour billions into a black hole while my brother deteriorates. Liam's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Henderson, his elderly neighbor who was watching Maya. She had a rough night, tremors worse. Calling Dr. Patel. His heart sank. I need to call my daughter, he said, his voice tight. Aveline nodded, gesturing to the adjoining conference room. Indeed, take your time. Liam stepped away, dialing with trembling fingers. Maya answered on the third ring. Daddy! Where are you? Her small voice was thick with sleep. Hey, Sweet Pea, I had to work late. How are you feeling? My hands are being silly again. She tried to sound brave, but he could hear the fear underneath. And they keep dropping things. Liam closed his eyes, fighting back the surge of helpless rage that threatened to overwhelm him. I know, baby, but I'm working on something that might help, I promise. A surprise. Despite everything, there was still hope in her voice. Maybe. A big one. I'll tell you all about it later. I love you, Maya. Love you more, Daddy. He ended the call and stood motionless, staring out at the city. When he returned to Aveline's office, his resolve had hardened into something unbreakable. We need to move fast, he said. How soon can you get access to the actual compound they're using? Aveline was already on her secure line. Graves, she said to her head of security, I need you in my office. Now, and bring the digital access keys to the research facility. She hung up and turned to Liam. 20 minutes. My security chief will get us whatever we need. Liam nodded, then hesitated. Ms. Langford, I need to ask you something. She looked up, arching an eyebrow. If we're right about this, if Finch is deliberately sabotaging the research, what happens next? For Maya, I mean. He swallowed hard. She doesn't have much time. Aveline's expression softened fractional. If we can salvage the legitimate research, identify what Finch corrupted, we might be able to develop a viable treatment, but it would take time. How much time? Months? At best, maybe longer. Liam's shoulders slumped. She might not have months. Aveline stood and crossed to where he stood. For the first time, she truly looked at him, not as a janitor, not as an unexpected ally, but as a father facing the unthinkable. Mr. Byrne, she said quietly, I'm going to make you a promise. Whatever happens with Finch, whatever we discover, your daughter will receive the best care available. I'll fly in specialists from around the world. We'll try experimental treatments, compassionate use protocols, anything that might help. Maya will not face this alone. The sincerity in her voice caught him off guard. This wasn't the calculated promise of a CEO protecting an asset. This was something more personal. Why would you do that? he asked. Because 6 months ago, I sat across from my brother and promised him the same thing. Her voice wavered slightly. I looked him in the eye and swore I would move heaven and earth to save him. And then I failed him by trusting the wrong person. Her jaw tightened. I won't fail again. A sharp knock interrupted them. The door opened to reveal a tall, imposing man with the watchful eyes of someone who had seen combat. You called for me, Miss Langford. His gaze flickered to Liam, assessing the janitor's presence in the CEO's office with professional suspicion. Graves, this is Liam Byrne. He's helping me with a sensitive matter regarding the Langford initiative. She turned to her computer. I need everything on Dr. Alistair Finch. Personal history, financial records, communications, keycard access logs. And I need a complete copy of the research data. Not the summarized reports he's been feeding me, but the raw data. Graves didn't blink at the unusual request. How far back? 3 years, since the beginning of the project. He nodded once. And the janitor's clearance level. Full access. He stays with me. Aveline's tone brooked no argument. Graves hesitated only a moment before nodding again. I'll need 30 minutes to gather everything securely. You have 15, Aveline replied. And Graves, this stays between us. No one else is to know, especially not Dr. Finch or anyone on his team. Understood. Graves gave Liam one final appraising look before departing. As the door closed, Liam turned to Aveline. He doesn't trust me. Graves doesn't trust anyone. It's why he's still alive, she returned to her desk, and why I'm still alive, for that matter. 3 assassination attempts in 5 years tend to make one cautious. Liam blinked in surprise. Someone tried to kill you. Corporate warfare isn't just a metaphor, Mr. Byrne. She pulled up a secure terminal on her computer. When you control as many resources as Langford Industries does, you become a target. Is that why you think someone would sabotage the research to get at you? Aveline's fingers paused over the keyboard. Perhaps, or perhaps Finch simply found a way to monetize failure. Either way, we're going to expose him. She turned to face Liam fully, but we need to be strategic. If Finch suspects we're onto him, he could destroy evidence or accelerate his timeline. We need to catch him red-handed. How? By letting him believe he's won. A cold smile played at the corners of her mouth. I'm going to give Dr. Finch exactly what he wants. Access to my brother for the final phase of treatment. Except we'll be watching every move he makes. Liam felt a chill run down his spine. You're using your brother as bait. I'm using myself as bait, she corrected. Finch wants my money and my desperation. He'll get both, along with enough rope to hang himself. It's dangerous, Liam warned. So is doing nothing. Aveline's gaze was steel. My brother receives his next treatment in 18 hours. Whatever Finch has planned, it happens then. We have until morning to build our case and prepare our countermove. The weight of what they were attempting settled over them. 2 people from vastly different worlds, united by a shared enemy and the desperate love for their family. I should be with Maya, Liam said softly. You should be wherever you can do the most good for her, Aveline countered. Right now, that's here. He knew she was right, but the distance from his daughter felt like a physical ache. Aveline seemed to sense his conflict. Call Mrs. Henderson, she said, her voice gentler than he'd heard before. Ask her to bring Maya here after school. We can set her up in the executive lounge. There's a comfortable sofa, entertainment system, kitchen. She'll be comfortable. Liam looked at her, surprised by the offer. It's not entirely altruistic, Aveline admitted. I'd like to meet her. For the first time since entering her office last night, Liam smiled. It transformed his tired face, revealing the man beneath the exhaustion and fear. I think she'd like that, he said simply. By mid-afternoon, Aveline's pristine office had transformed into a war room. Holographic displays projected data across glass walls. Secure terminals ran decryption algorithms, and digital timelines tracked Dr. Finch's activities over the past 3 years. Graves moved efficiently between stations, his quiet competence a reassuring presence. When the elevator chimed, Liam looked up from the terminal where he'd been analyzing research protocol. The doors opened to reveal Mrs. Henderson, her grey hair neatly pinned back, holding the hand of a small girl with wide, curious eyes. "Maya," Liam breathed, crossing the room in long strides. He knelt and gathered his daughter into his arms, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Daddy, this building is so tall," Maya exclaimed, her excitement momentarily overshadowing the slight tremor in her hands. "We went up and up forever. 50 floors is pretty impressive," Liam agreed, standing with Maya's hand in his. "There's someone I'd like you to meet." Aveline had paused her work, watching the reunion with an expression Liam couldn't quite read. As he approached with Maya, she smoothed her tailored suit and stepped forward. "Maya, this is Ms. Langford. She owns this whole building." Maya's eyes widened. "The whole thing? Even the elevator?" A smile tugged at Aveline's lips, genuine, unguarded. "Even the elevator," she confirmed, extending her hand to Maya with the same gravity she would offer a business associate. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Maya." The little girl shook hands solemnly, then glanced around the office. "It's very pretty up here. You can see everything." "Not quite everything," Aveline said, "but it does offer perspective." Mrs. Henderson, who had been staring open-mouthed at the luxurious surroundings, finally found her voice. "Mr. Byrne, I've brought Maya's medications and her overnight bag, just as you asked." "Thank you," Liam said, taking the bag. "Ms. Langford has arranged for Maya to stay in the executive lounge while we finish some important work." "I'll show them," Graves volunteered unexpectedly. He'd appeared silently at Aveline's side, his imposing presence softening slightly as he looked at Maya. "The chef is preparing dinner. I believe ice cream was mentioned for dessert." Maya's face lit up. "Ice cream on a weekday? Special circumstances," Graves said seriously, offering his hand. "There's also a drawing table set up. Miss Langford mentioned you're an artist." As Graves led Maya and Mrs. Henderson away, Liam turned to Aveline with gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you." She nodded once, already turning back to work. "Let's make it worth it." For the next hour, they delved deeper into the research data Graves had extracted from the secure servers. The more they uncovered, the clearer the picture became. "Look at this," Liam said, pointing to a molecular diagram. The original compound had a stabilizing agent that prevented neural degradation. In each subsequent version, Finch gradually reduced its concentration while adding these compounds. He highlighted a series of molecular chains. "I'm not a biochemist, but these look like neurotoxins." Aveline's face hardened. "They are. Low dose, slow acting, but neurotoxins nonetheless." She pulled up another file. "And here's the treatment schedule for my brother. The dosage increases significantly for tomorrow's session." He's accelerating the timeline, Liam realized. "Why now?" "Because of this." Aveline displayed a confidential memo. "The board approved an additional $2 billion in funding last week, contingent on promising preliminary results. Finch knows I've been pressuring them for months. This is his endgame. Get the money, deliver a fatal dose to Kellen, and disappear with his research. We need to stop tomorrow's treatment," Liam said urgently. "No," Aveline's voice was ice. "We need to catch him in the act. If we simply cancel, he'll destroy evidence and vanish. We need to document everything, have him administer the treatment under surveillance, then arrest him the moment he crosses the line." "That's too risky," Liam argued. "What if we can't intervene in time?" "We'll replace the compound," Aveline countered. "Graves can access the lab tonight and substitute a placebo. Finch will think he's administering his poison, but Kellen will receive saline solution." Liam considered this. "What about the real research? Is there anything salvageable?" "I've had a team analyzing the original compound structure. The science is sound. It's Finch's modifications that corrupted it." She met his gaze. "There's hope, Mr. Byrne. For both Kellen and Maya." The mention of his daughter brought Liam back to reality. He checked his watch. "I should check on her." "Go." Aveline nodded. "We'll reconvene in an hour." By then, Graves should have the security footage from Finch's lab. Liam found Maya in the executive lounge, sprawled on a plush sofa with a sketchbook. The tremor in her hands was more pronounced than this morning, but she was determinedly working on a drawing. Graves sat nearby, his intimidating frame incongruous against the elegant furniture, watching Maya with surprising gentleness. "But Daddy, look, Maya held up her drawing, a somewhat shaky but recognizable rendering of the city skyline visible from the windows. "Mr. Graves showed me how to draw buildings." Graves stood. "She has talent," he said quietly. "I'll give you privacy." As he left, Liam settled beside Maya. "That's beautiful, sweet pea. How are you feeling?" "My hands are extra shaky today," she admitted. "But Mr. Graves said that just means I have to be braver than other artists." She looked up at her father. "Daddy, why are we here? Is this about my doctor appointments?" Liam hesitated, weighing how much to tell her. "Yes, it is. Ms. Langford is helping us find a better treatment for your condition." "Is she sick too?" Maya asked perceptively. "No, but her brother has the same condition you do." Maya considered this. "And is that why she looked sad when she saw me?" Liam was caught off guard by his daughter's insight. "Maybe. She's worried about him. Just like I worry about you." "You shouldn't worry so much," Maya said, patting his hand. "It makes your eyes crinkly, despite everything." Liam laughed. "I'll try to remember that." When he returned to the office, Aveline was standing at the window, silhouetted against the darkening sky. The city lights were coming on, creating the same view Maya had attempted to capture in her drawing. For a moment, Liam was struck by the image. This powerful woman, alone at the top of her glass tower, bearing the weight of empires on her shoulders. "She's remarkable," Aveline said without turning. "Your daughter, she is," Liam agreed, moving to stand beside her. "No, too smart for her own good sometimes. Children often are." She turned to face him. "Graves told me about her drawing, her determination. She gets that from her mother," Liam said softly. "Alexandra never backed down from a challenge." "And where is Alexandra now?" Aveline asked, her tone carefully neutral. "Car accident 3 years ago." The words were simple, factual, masking the devastation beneath. "Drunk driver?" "Maya was in the back seat. She survived without a scratch." "I'm sorry," Aveline said, and for once, the words didn't sound like a corporate platitude. "We managed," Liam said. "I took the night shift here so I could be with Maya during the day. It worked until—" He trailed off, the unspoken diagnosis hanging between them. "Until it didn't," Aveline finished for him. They stood in silence, watching the city lights twinkle below. Two people from opposite ends of the social spectrum, united by loss and the desperate fight to prevent more of it. The moment was broken by Graves's return. "We have the footage," he announced, "and it's worse than we thought." On the main screen, a video began to play. Dr. Alistair Finch in his lab, speaking with another man whose face was obscured. "Don't care about the side effects," the unknown man was saying. "The board meeting is in 2 days. Langford needs to be dealt with before then, and she will be," Finch assured him. "Once her brother dies during treatment, she'll be too devastated to fight the takeover. The board will vote her out, and control of Langford Industries will transfer exactly as planned." Aveline's face went pale, then flushed with fury. "Pause it," she commanded. "Enhance the second figure." The image zoomed and clarified, revealing a face Aveline clearly recognized. Her hands curled into fists. "Richard Vance," she said, her voice deadly quiet. "My CFO." The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap. Richard Vance, Aveline's second in command, the man who had access to every aspect of Langford Industries, the man she had trusted with both corporate secrets and personal confidences. "A hostile takeover," Aveline breathed, her voice dangerously quiet. "That's what this has always been about." "The CFO and the researcher," Liam said, connecting the dots. "Vance provides insider information, Finch sabotages the research, and Kellen becomes collateral damage." "Not collateral," Aveline corrected, her fingers digging into the polished edge of her desk. "The linchpin. They know how much I've invested in finding a cure, not just financially, but emotionally. They're counting on my devastation to weaken me before the board meeting." Graves tapped on his tablet, bringing up more files. "Vance has been systematically undermining your position for months. He's arranged private meetings with 7 of the 12 board members, and his personal finances show a pattern consistent with someone preparing for a major change in status. Buying property, liquidating long-term investments, establishing offshore accounts," Aveline listed, her analytical mind cutting through her personal betrayal to see the strategy. "He's positioning himself to take over as CEO." "There's more," Graves said grimly. Dr. Corbin Vance, the disgraced researcher Finch, has been paying. He's Richard Vance's brother. Liam's eyebrows shot up. Family business. Keeping the corruption in the family. Aveline agreed bitterly. She straightened, her momentary shock hardening into resolve. Graves, I want everything. Financial records, communications, security footage. I want to know every time these two breathed the same air. Already compiling. Graves nodded. But there's a complication. Richard has board-level security clearance. If he detects our investigation, he could alert Finch. Then we isolate them, Aveline decided. Liam, does Finch know you work here? I don't think so, Liam said. The night crew is practically invisible. He's never acknowledged me. Good, that gives us an advantage. She began pacing, her high heels clicking on the polished floor as she formulated a plan. Tomorrow morning, I'll call an emergency executive meeting, ostensibly to discuss the latest trial results. That will keep Richard occupied. Meanwhile, you and Graves will access the lab and switch the compound before Kellen's scheduled treatment. Graves frowned. With respect, Ma'am, it would be better if I stayed with you if Richard suspects anything. I can handle Richard. Aveline cut him off. Liam needs your access codes and security expertise to reach the lab undetected. And what about Finch? Liam asked. Even if we switch the compound, he'll still be free to try again. Not after tomorrow, Aveline said with cold certainty. I've seen enough to bring in federal authorities, corporate espionage, attempted murder, fraud. They'll both face decades in prison. Liam hesitated, thinking of his daughter in the next room. And the real research? Is there enough untainted data to develop a legitimate treatment? The question hung in the air, underlining their shared stake in this beyond justice or corporate politics. Two lives, Kellen and Maya, depended on salvaging something real from Finch's web of deception. Aveline's expression softened fractionally. I've had the original compound formula sent to 3 independent labs. If the core science is sound, we could have a viable treatment protocol within months. Maya might not have months, Liam said quietly. I know. Aveline met his gaze directly. That's why I've also arranged for compassionate use authorization. The moment we have a stable compound, both Kellen and Maya will be first in line to receive it. The door opened, and Maya peered in hesitantly. Daddy, I'm getting really tired. Liam crossed to her immediately. It's past your bedtime, sweet pea. Let's get you settled. Aveline watched them, something unreadable flickering across her face. The executive suite has a guest bedroom, she offered. It's more comfortable than the lounge sofa. Maya's eyes widened. Like a sleepover. Exactly like that, Aveline confirmed, her tone gentler than Liam had yet heard from her. And I believe there's a view of the city lights that an artist might appreciate. As Liam led Maya away, Aveline turned back to Graves. Prepare the security protocols for tomorrow. Full surveillance, remote override capabilities for all lab systems, and a direct line to federal agents. I want them ready to move the moment we have confirmation. And Richard? Graves asked. Leave Richard to me, Aveline said, a dangerous edge to her voice. He thinks he knows what I'm capable of. He's about to learn how wrong he is. Later, after settling Maya in the luxurious guest suite, Liam returned to find Aveline still working. The bottle of amber liquid remained untouched on her desk, a silent testament to how dramatically circumstances had changed since their first encounter mere hours ago. She's asleep, Liam reported, dropping into a chair across from her. Exhaustion tugged at him, but the adrenaline of what they'd discovered kept him alert. The tremors are worse. I had to help her brush her teeth. Aveline looked up from her tablet, her eyes showing a glimpse of genuine concern before her professional mask slipped back into place. The disease progression is accelerating. Yes, the single word contained volumes of fear and grief. Aveline set down her tablet, studying him with new interest. But you've never asked how much I'm worth, Mr. Byrne. The non sequitur caught him off guard. Excuse me? My personal fortune. Langford Industries market capitalization. The research budget for the NDS project. She leaned forward. Most people in your position would be calculating what they could gain from this situation. Liam met her gaze steadily. I'm not most people, and I'm not in this for money. I know, she said simply. That's why I trust you. The admission hung between them, unexpected and sincere. In the reflected glow of the city lights, With her guard momentarily lowered, Aveline Langford looked less like an untouchable CEO and more like what she truly was, a woman fighting desperately for her brother's life. "Why did you come to my office tonight?" she asked suddenly. "You could have reported what you found through official channels. You could have gone to the authorities. Why approach me directly?" Liam considered the question. "Because Maya taught me something important. When she was first diagnosed, I spent weeks researching medical journals, calling specialists, exploring every possible treatment option. But one night, she crawled into my lap while I was reading yet another depressing clinical study, put her little hands on my face and said, 'Daddy, I don't need you to fix me. I just need you to be with me.'" He leaned forward, his voice low and earnest. "Sometimes the most important thing isn't finding the solution. It's not being alone when you face the problem." Something shifted in Aveline's expression, a hairline crack in the impenetrable armor she wore. For a brief moment, vulnerability glimmered in her eyes. "My entire life has been about fixing problems," she said quietly. "Broken companies, inefficient systems, market failures. I built Langford Industries by identifying what was broken and ruthlessly repairing it." She glanced toward the window, toward the city that had watched her rise. "But I couldn't fix Kellen. No matter how much money or power or influence I wielded, I couldn't stop his disease." "No one could," Liam said gently. "That's not failure. That's being human." She looked back at him, this janitor who had somehow found his way past all her defenses to speak a truth she had been running from. In the soft glow of the desk lamp, the vast gulf between their worlds seemed to narrow. "We should both get some rest," she said, breaking the moment. "Tomorrow will require clear heads." Liam nodded, rising from his chair. "Good night, Ms. Langford." As he reached the door, her voice stopped him. "Aveline," she said, "under the circumstances, I think we're well past formalities, don't you?" He turned back, a small smile touching his tired face. "Good night, Aveline." "Good night, Liam." Morning arrived with the harsh clarity of fluorescent lights in the executive bathroom, where Liam splashed cold water on his face. He'd slept fitfully on a sofa in Aveline's office, too wired with anticipation and fear to properly rest. His reflection showed a man he barely recognized. Stubbled, exhausted, wearing yesterday's janitor uniform, but with a determined set to his jaw that hadn't been there before. When he returned to the office, Aveline was already at her desk. Unlike him, she looked immaculate in a fresh charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in a severe knot at the nape of her neck. If not for the shadows beneath her eyes, he would never have guessed she'd spent the night unraveling a conspiracy. "Coffee," she said, nodding toward a steaming cup on the edge of her desk. "I had it brought up. But there's breakfast in the conference room." "Thank you." Liam took the cup gratefully, the rich aroma momentarily cutting through his fatigue. "How's Maya?" "Still sleeping. Mrs. Henderson is with her." Aveline looked up from her tablet. "I've arranged for a pediatric neurologist to see her this afternoon. Dr. Patel is one of the few specialists who's actually treated NDS in children." Liam's grip tightened on the cup. "But you didn't have to do that." "Consider it enlightened self-interest," she replied coolly. "The more we understand about Maya's case, the better our chances of developing an effective treatment for both her and Kellen." Her tone was businesslike, but Liam was beginning to recognize the pattern. The more clinical Aveline sounded, the more she was trying to distance herself from genuine emotion. It was a defense mechanism as transparent as glass to someone who had watched her break down just 24 hours earlier. "I checked on your brother's schedule," Liam said, changing the subject. "His treatment is set for 2 p.m. at the research facility. Finch has blocked off the entire afternoon. Plenty of time for something to go catastrophically wrong." Aveline's mouth thinned to a hard line. "Graves has prepared everything for the compound switch. You'll access the lab at noon during the staff lunch break." "And Richard?" Liam asked. "Executive committee meeting at 11 a.m. I've ensured it will run long." A cold smile touched her lips. "Richard has been angling to present his 5-year strategic vision to the board. Today, he gets his wish, in excruciating detail, with my personal scrutiny on every slide." Liam nodded, impressed despite himself by her ability to compartmentalize, to sit across from a man plotting her downfall and maintain the facade of business as usual. "You've done this before," he observed. "Faced betrayal. Aveline's eyes flickered up to his, sharp as broken glass. "Da, you don't build an empire without learning who has a knife aimed at your back." She set down her tablet. "My father taught me that lesson early. He was not a gentle instructor." Something in her tone suggested depths of history Liam could only guess at. "Your father founded the company, Langford Shipping." "Yes, a modest regional operation when he started." Her voice took on a distant quality. "But I transformed it into Langford Industries after his death, diversified into technology, pharmaceuticals, aerospace. He would have hated what I've built. Too ambitious, too modern, too mine." The admission surprised him, this glimpse into what drove her. Before he could respond, Graves entered with a secure briefcase. "Everything's prepared," he announced, setting the case on Aveline's desk. "Surveillance is in place throughout the lab. The compound has been synthesized according to the original formula, saline with traceable markers that will register on Finch's equipment, but completely inert." He turned to Liam. "These are for you." He handed over a security badge, an earpiece, and what looked like an ordinary pen. "The badge will get you through most doors. The pen contains a chemical analyzer. Touch it to any substance, and it will send readings directly to our secure server. The earpiece keeps you connected to both of us." Liam examined the items, feeling distinctly out of place. "I'm a janitor, not James Bond. Today you're whatever we need you to be," Aveline said simply. A soft knock interrupted them. Maya stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, her dark hair tousled from sleep. She looked impossibly small against the backdrop of the executive office. "Daddy? I can't find my toothbrush." Liam pocketed the spy gear and crossed to his daughter. "It's in your overnight bag, sweet pea. Let's go find it." As they left, Aveline called after them. "Maya, have you had breakfast? The chef can make whatever you'd like." Maya's eyes widened. "Anything. Even chocolate chip pancakes." "Especially chocolate chip pancakes," Aveline confirmed, her severe expression softening just a fraction. Later, with Maya settled in the executive dining room under Mrs. Henderson's watchful eye, Liam found himself alone with Aveline in her office once more. The morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the obsidian desk where it had all begun last night. "Why did you become a janitor?" Aveline asked suddenly, looking up from her notes. "You're clearly intelligent, resourceful. You could have done more." The question might have sounded condescending from someone else, but Liam heard genuine curiosity in her voice. After Alexandra died, Maya needed stability. Same home, same school, same routine. He shrugged. "Night shift janitorial work paid enough to cover the bills and let me be with her during the day. No complicated career ambitions, just a father doing what his daughter needed." "That's admirable," Aveline said, sounding like she meant it. "Not really, just love." Liam leaned against the window, looking out at the city. "What about you? You could have inherited your father's company and lived comfortably. Why build all this?" Aveline was silent for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of her desk. "Because I needed to prove I could," she finally said. "My father had 2 children. Me and my brother. He groomed Kellen to take over the business, despite the fact that I showed more aptitude. When Kellen chose medicine instead, my father never forgave him. And when your father died, the board tried to sell the company rather than let me run it." Her smile was razor sharp. "I mortgaged everything I owned, secured backing from 3 investors who believed in me, and bought controlling interest. Within 5 years, I had increased the company's value tenfold and forced out every board member who had opposed me." "Impressive," Liam acknowledged, "and terrifying." "That was the point." Aveline checked her watch. "It's time. Richard will be expecting me in the boardroom." She stood, smoothing her impeccable suit, the armor of her position settling around her once more. For a moment, Liam saw her as she must appear to the world, untouchable, formidable, a force of nature contained in human form. "Be careful," he said suddenly. "Richard knows you better than Finch does. If anyone can see through your act, it's him. Richard sees what he expects to see, Aveline replied. A woman driven by pride and ambition, whose emotional attachment to her brother is a weakness to exploit. Her eyes met Liam's, clear and determined. He's not entirely wrong, but he's forgotten something important. What's that? Langfords protect their own. She picked up her tablet, her transformation to CEO complete. And as of last night, that includes you and Maya. The simple declaration left Liam momentarily speechless. In less than 24 hours, this woman had gone from a distant figure in a glass tower to someone who considered his daughter under her protection. The realization was both comforting and terrifying. Graves will meet you at the service elevator at 11:45, Aveline continued. All business now. Remember, switch the compound, document everything, but do not confront Finch. We need him to proceed as planned so we can catch him in the act. Understood, Liam nodded. At the door, Aveline paused. When this is over, what will you do? Go back to being a janitor? The question caught him off guard. I haven't thought that far ahead. Perhaps you should, she said, and then she was gone, her heels clicking purposefully down the corridor toward a boardroom where she would face her betrayer with a smile. The service elevator hummed quietly as it descended to the research levels beneath Langford Tower. Liam stood beside Graves, both men silent, the weight of their mission pressing down on them with each passing floor. Liam was still wearing his grey janitor's uniform, a tactical decision, Graves had explained. Maintenance staff were functionally invisible in most secure facilities, their presence registered but rarely questioned. Remember, Graves said as the elevator slowed, you're there to perform routine maintenance on the environmental control. If anyone questions you, you have work orders on your tablet. Don't engage more than necessary. Liam nodded, his heart hammering against his ribs. And you'll be monitoring from the security hub. I'll see everything you see. Graves tapped his own earpiece. Aveline is keeping Richard occupied, but we need to move quickly. Finch usually takes lunch in his office, but he's been known to return to the lab unexpectedly. The elevator doors opened onto a sterile white corridor. Unlike the opulent upper floors of Langford Tower, the research level was utilitarian, all function and no form. Liam pushed his maintenance cart forward, keeping his head down as lab technicians passed by, barely glancing at the janitor in their midst. Meanwhile, 50 floors above, Aveline sat at the head of the conference table, her posture perfect, her expression impassive, as Richard Vance enthusiastically presented his 5-year vision for Langford Industries. She watched him with the detached interest of a scientist observing a specimen, noting the practiced confidence in his voice, the carefully calibrated body language, designed to project authority. Which brings us to the projected revenue streams from our pharmaceutical division, Richard was saying, advancing to a slide filled with optimistic growth charts. And as you can see, even with the setbacks in the NDS research, we're positioned for significant expansion in the next quarter. Interesting, Aveline interrupted, her voice cool. You seem rather confident about our pharmaceutical projections, despite the fact that our flagship research initiative is currently stalled. Richard didn't miss a beat. I believe in planning for multiple contingencies, Aveline. The NDS research was always a high-risk investment. Was, she echoed, raising an eyebrow. You speak of it in the past tense. A flicker of something, surprise perhaps, or wariness, crossed Richard's face before his mask of corporate collegiality slipped back into place. A poor choice of words. Of course, I meant is. Though given Dr. Finch's most recent report, perhaps we should discuss realistic timelines for either success or reallocation of resources. By all means, Aveline replied with a thin smile. Let's discuss realistic timelines. In fact, why don't we invite Dr. Finch to join us? I'm sure he'd appreciate being included in conversations about the future of his research. She reached for her phone, watching as Richard's composure slipped just a fraction. That's hardly necessary, he said quickly. Finch is preparing for Kellen's treatment this afternoon. We shouldn't disturb him. How considerate of you, Aveline murmured, setting down her phone. Very well. Continue with your presentation. I'm particularly interested in the section on corporate governance changes. In the laboratory, Liam had reached the main research area, a vast, open space filled with cutting-edge equipment and busy technicians. At the far end, behind a glass partition, lay the treatment room where Kellen would receive his next dose. Adjacent to it was a smaller lab where the compounds were prepared and stored. The storage unit is through the door on your left. Graves's voice came through his earpiece. Access code 4729. The security camera will loop footage for 3 minutes once you enter. Move quickly. Liam pushed his cart to the indicated door, keyed in the code with steady fingers, and slipped inside. The small room was lined with refrigeration units, each housing different compounds in carefully labeled vials. Third unit from the right, Graves instructed. The NDS compound is in a sealed case marked with today's date and Kellen's patient ID. Liam found it easily, a small metal case containing 3 vials of amber liquid, each bearing a barcode and Kellen's identifier. He opened the secure case Graves had given him, revealing 3 identical vials filled with the placebo solution. Use the analyzer on both the original and the replacement, Graves said. We need to confirm composition before the switch. Liam touched the pen-shaped analyzer to one of Finch's vials. A tiny light on the end blinked red, then green as it sampled the compound. Readings coming through, Graves confirmed. Definitely not what was in the approved protocol. High concentrations of neurotoxins, just as we suspected. With careful precision, Liam removed Finch's vials and replaced them with the placebos, ensuring the barcodes matched perfectly. He sealed the case of dangerous compounds and placed it in his inner pocket. 60 seconds remaining on the loop, Graves warned. Liam quickly touched the analyzer to one of the newly placed vials, confirming it registered as harmless saline. He closed the refrigeration unit and turned to leave just as the door handle began to turn. In the boardroom, Aveline watched Richard with predatory focus as he outlined proposed changes to the company's leadership structure. The presentation had reached the section she'd been waiting for. A subtle but significant redistribution of power that would weaken her position while strengthening the board's oversight capabilities. Which is why I believe creating a new position of executive chairman would provide better governance balance, Richard was explaining, his confidence growing as he moved through familiar territory. This would allow you, Aveline, to focus on the visionary aspects of leadership while day-to-day operations fall to you, she finished for him, her voice deceptively light. Richard smiled modestly. I would, of course, be honored to serve in whatever capacity the board deems appropriate. How selfless, Aveline remarked, tapping her pen against her notepad. Tell me, Richard, when did you first conceive of this restructuring plan? Before or after you began meeting privately with board members? His smile faltered. I've merely been doing my job, Aveline. The CFO regularly briefs board members on financial matters. Of course, she agreed pleasantly. And does the CFO regularly consult with disgraced medical researchers like Dr. Corbin Vance, your brother, if I'm not mistaken? The blood drained from Richard's face. I don't know what you're... Please, she cut him off, her voice hardening. Let's not insult each other's intelligence. I know everything, Richard. The offshore payments, the falsified research data, the planned accident during Kellen's treatment today. She leaned forward, her eyes boring into his. What I don't know is why you thought you would succeed. In the lab storage room, Liam froze as the door began to open. With nowhere to hide, he did the only thing he could. He turned toward the door, clipboard in hand, the very picture of a maintenance worker performing a routine check. Dr. Alistair Finch stepped into the room, his thin face registering first surprise, then suspicion at finding someone in the secure storage area. What are you doing in here? He demanded. This is a restricted area. Liam didn't miss a beat. Environmental control check, sir. We've had temperature fluctuations reported in several storage units. I was sent to verify calibration. Finch frowned. I didn't authorize authorize any maintenance. Building management did, sir. Liam held up his tablet with the falsified work order Graves had prepared. All the research levels are being checked before the weekend. Wouldn't want any valuable compounds compromised by equipment failure. Finch stepped closer, examining the work order with narrowed eyes. I don't recognize your face. Night shift, usually, Liam explained, maintaining eye contact despite the thundering of his heart. But they needed extra hands for the inspection push. After a tense moment, Finch seemed to accept the explanation. Fine. But hurry up and get out. We have important procedures scheduled this afternoon. Yes, sir. Almost done. Liam made a show of checking the digital thermometer on the wall. Everything looks good here. I'll just note it in the system and be on my way. Finch moved to one of the refrigeration units, not the one Liam had accessed, thankfully, and removed a small vial. Without another word, he left the room, the door closing behind him with a soft click. Liam released the breath he'd been holding. That was close. Too close, Graves agreed in his ear. But you handled it well. Get out of there now. The switch is complete. Liam exited the storage room, pushing his maintenance cart with deliberate casualness. His pulse still raced from the encounter with Finch, but outwardly he maintained the invisible persona of the janitor, head slightly down, movements efficient but unremarkable. Just another part of the building's machinery. Several lab technicians passed him in the corridor, their eyes sliding over him without registration. Well done. Graves's voice came through the earpiece. Head to the service elevator. We need to secure those samples. As Liam rounded the corner toward the elevator, a lab-coated figure stepped into his path, a young woman with bright eyes and a security badge identifying her as Dr. Leah Chen, research associate. Excuse me, she said, studying him with interest rather than suspicion. Your maintenance, right? We've been having issues with the ventilation system in Lab 3. The readings keep fluctuating. Liam felt a bead of sweat form at his temple. This wasn't part of the plan. I can put in a work order, he offered, keeping his voice neutral. Facilities should be able to check it this afternoon. Dr. Chen frowned. We need it addressed sooner. We're running time-sensitive cultures. She glanced at his cart. Don't you have tools to at least take a look? Chen is one of Finch's assistants, Graves warned in his ear. Be careful, Liam forced a smile. Sure, I can take a quick look. Lead the way. As he followed Dr. Chen down a side corridor, Liam's mind raced. Was this a coincidence or a trap? Had Finch become suspicious and sent his assistant to delay him? The vials felt heavy in his pocket, a dangerous secret pressed against his chest. In the boardroom, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Richard Vance stood rigid, his presentation forgotten as Aveline Langford methodically dismantled his world. I've already spoken with the SEC, she informed him, her voice as smooth and cold as ice. They're particularly interested in the pattern of stock trades preceding your brother's consulting arrangement with Dr. Finch. You're making wild accusations, Richard said, his confident demeanor crumbling around the edges. The board has already been briefed, Aveline cut him off. A special session was convened at 6 a.m. this morning. They've seen the evidence, they've heard the recordings, they've approved all necessary actions. Richard's gaze darted to the closed boardroom door, calculating escape routes. This is a witch hunt. You've always been paranoid, Aveline, always seeing conspiracies where there's only healthy business competition. Healthy business competition doesn't involve attempted murder. She rose slowly from her chair, placing both hands flat on the polished table. My brother's treatment is scheduled for 2 p.m. today. The final phase of your plan, wasn't it? The tragic accident that would devastate me just before the crucial board vote. Richard's face had gone ashen. You've lost your mind? I had nothing to do with the treatment protocols. That was all Finch. Yes, let's talk about Finch. Aveline tapped her tablet, and the boardroom screen illuminated with security footage. Richard and Finch in a parking garage, exchanging documents. This was taken 3 days ago. Your last planning session, I presume. Finalizing the details? That's nothing. Routine business. Routine business conducted in an underground parking garage, off campus, with no record in either of your calendars. Aveline's smile was merciless. The FBI disagreed with your assessment. They found it quite interesting. As the implications sank in, Richard lunged for the door. It opened before he reached it, revealing 2 stern-faced men in dark suits. Richard Vance, one of them said, displaying his badge. "I'm Special Agent Mercer with the FBI. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit securities fraud, corporate espionage, and attempted murder." Richard's shoulders slumped in defeat. As the agents led him away, he turned back to Aveline. "This isn't over," he spat. "Mind Finch has contingencies you can't imagine." "I imagine quite a lot, Richard," Aveline replied coolly. "That's why I'm still standing while you're in handcuffs." When the door closed behind them, Aveline allowed herself one shuddering breath, the only outward sign of the stress she'd been under. She tapped her earpiece. "Graves, Richard is secured. What's the status on the lab?" "Complication," Graves replied tersely. "Liam has been diverted by one of Finch's assistants." Liam stood in Lab 3, pretending to examine the ventilation control panel while Dr. Chen watched with arms crossed. The lab was empty save for the two of them, the gleaming equipment silent. No cultures visible anywhere. "There's no problem with the system," Liam said, closing the panel. "Readings are all within normal parameters." "That's odd," Dr. Chen replied, making no move to let him pass. Dr. Finch was certain there was an issue. The word sent a chill down Liam's spine. This was definitely a trap. "Finch knows," Graves warned in his ear. "Get out of there now." "Well, I've logged the check," Liam said casually, reaching for his cart. "If you notice any further problems, just submit a ticket to maintenance." "Actually," Dr. Chen said, stepping closer, "I think Dr. Finch would like to thank you personally for your thorough work. He's waiting in his office." "That's very kind, but I have other assignments." "I insist." Her hand moved to her lab coat pocket, and Liam glimpsed the outline of something that could only be a weapon. In that moment, Liam made a split-second decision. He shoved the heavy maintenance cart directly at Dr. Chen, sending her stumbling backward. As she fought to regain her balance, he bolted for the door. "Security breach in Lab 3, Chen's voice called out behind him as alarms began to blare throughout the research level. "Emergency stairwell, end of the corridor," Graves directed in his ear. "Move!" Liam sprinted down the hallway, the precious vials secure in his pocket. Security personnel were emerging from various labs, responding to the alarm. He ducked into the stairwell, just as shouts erupted behind him. "They've identified you?" Graves warned. "Finch must have reviewed the storage room footage. The entire building is going into lockdown." Liam took the stairs two at a time, climbing upward. "Maya," he gasped. "Where's Maya?" "Safe," Graves assured him. Aveline moved her and Mrs. Henderson to the secure executive suite when we realized things were escalating. At the 10th floor, the stairwell door burst open and two security guards appeared. Liam reversed direction, racing downward instead. "Nowhere to go," he panted. "They're sealing the building." "The loading dock," Graves instructed. "Sub-level 2. I can override the security long enough for you to get out." Liam changed direction again, descending rapidly toward the underground levels. His lungs burned, his legs protesting the punishing pace. The janitor uniform that had granted him invisibility was now making him a target, its gray color distinctive against the white walls of the stairwell. Meanwhile, Aveline was moving with equal urgency through the executive levels. Her phone chimed with an alert. The building's security system had initiated lockdown protocols. "Finch is moving faster than anticipated," Graves reported through her earpiece. He must have realized something was wrong when Chen detained Liam. "What about Kellen?" Aveline demanded, her voice tight with fear. "Has Finch moved up the treatment schedule?" "Unknown. The security cameras in the patient wing have been disabled." Aveline's blood ran cold. "He's making his move now. He knows we're on to him." She quickened her pace. "Where's Liam?" "Trying to reach the loading dock. Security is converging on his position." Aveline made a split-second decision. Change of plans. "Tell Liam to head for the research wing instead. We're going directly for Kellen." "That's too dangerous," Graves protested. "The FBI team isn't in position yet. We don't have time to wait," Aveline snapped. "If Finch realizes the compound has been switched, he'll find another way to ensure Kellen doesn't leave that facility alive." She entered her private elevator, using her override code to bypass the lockdown. "And Graves, alert the federal agents. Tell them Dr. Alistair Finch is attempting to flee with evidence of criminal activity. I want that facility surrounded." As the elevator descended, Aveline found herself in an unexpected position, racing to save not only her brother, but also the janitor who had stumbled into her office the night before and changed everything. Liam pressed his back against the wall of the service corridor, breathing hard. The alarms continued to wail throughout the building, their shrill cry a constant reminder of how quickly their carefully constructed plan had unraveled. He'd managed to evade the security team by ducking into a maintenance passage known only to the custodial staff, one of the many invisible arteries of the building that janitors traverse daily, unseen by the corporate world above. "The change of plans," Graves's voice came through his earpiece, nearly drowned out by the alarms. "Head to the research wing. Aveline is meeting you there. We think Finch is moving to eliminate Kellen now. The research wing is crawling with security," Liam protested. "How am I supposed to—" "Use the ventilation maintenance tunnel on sub-level 1E, Graves instructed. "It runs directly beneath the research wing. Access panel is in corridor C, behind the electrical room." Liam moved quickly, navigating the building's hidden infrastructure with the ease of someone who had spent years mapping its secrets. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same invisibility that had made him beneath notice was now his greatest asset. Meanwhile, Aveline's private elevator deposited her in a secure corridor adjacent to the research wing. She moved with purpose, her heels clicking against the polished floor, her security badge granting her access through doors that would have stopped anyone else. The scientists and staff she encountered flattened themselves against the walls as she passed, recognizing the cold fury in their CEO's eyes. "Where is Dr. Finch?" she demanded of a startled lab technician. "T treatment room 4, the young man stammered, "with the patient. But security protocols are—" Aveline brushed past him without waiting for the rest. Treatment room 4 was in the high security section of the wing, where the most sensitive trials were conducted. As she approached the reinforced doors, a security guard stepped into her path. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Langford, but Dr. Finch has initiated isolation protocols. No one in or out until the procedure is complete. Override code Langford Alpha 70, she stated, her voice like steel. "Step aside." The guard hesitated. "Ma'am," Dr. Finch specifically said, "I built this facility." Aveline cut him off. "I sign your paycheck, and that is my brother in there. Move." Now, beneath them, Liam had reached the ventilation tunnel, a narrow concrete passage barely tall enough to stand in, lit by sparse emergency lights that cast long shadows across the rough floor. The sound of the alarms was muffled here, replaced by the low, constant hum of the building's massive air circulation system. "You're directly below treatment room 4, Graves directed him. "There should be an access panel in the ceiling about 20 meters ahead." Liam spotted it, a metal grate set into the tunnel ceiling. Standing on tiptoe, he could just reach it with his fingertips. He pushed experimentally, but it didn't budge. "It's secured from above," he reported. "Hold position," Graves replied. "Aveline is almost there. When she creates a distraction, you'll make your move." Above, Aveline had reached the final security door, separating her from treatment room 4. Through the small observation window, she could see Finch in his white lab coat, bent over a medical gurney where Kellen lay motionless, an IV line running into his arm. To her horror, Finch was holding a syringe filled with amber liquid, not the replaced compound, but something else entirely. He'd had a backup plan all along. Aveline slammed her security badge against the reader, but a red light flashed in denial. Finch had locked the system down completely. She pounded on the door, and Finch looked up, his thin face registering first surprise, then a slow, malicious smile. He held up the syringe, making sure she could see it, then deliberately moved toward Kellen's IV line. "No!" Aveline shouted, her voice cracking with desperation. She turned to the security guard who had followed her. "Break it down, now!" The guard hesitated only a moment before throwing his weight against the door. It didn't give, built to withstand precisely this kind of forced entry. In the tunnel below, Liam heard the commotion. "What's happening?" "Finch has locked himself in with Kellen," Graves replied, his voice tight. "He has another dose of the compound. Aveline can't get through the door." Liam's mind raced. "The ventilation system, can we shut it down? Force an emergency evacuation?" "Not without Finch's authorization. He's locked out all external controls." Liam looked up at the access panel. then around at the tunnel. His gaze landed on a large valve wheel controlling the main air intake to the research wing. A desperate plan formed in his mind. "No, tell Aveline to put on her emergency oxygen mask," he said. "There should be one by the door." "What are you—" "Just do it." Liam was already moving toward the valve wheel, throwing his weight against it. It resisted at first, then began to turn with a protesting groan of metal against metal. If Finch has sealed the room, that means it's running on a closed ventilation system. "If I cut off the fresh air intake," understanding dawned in Graves's voice, "the oxygen levels will drop. Emergency protocols will trigger." "Exactly," Liam grunted, continuing to turn the massive wheel, "but only if the safety systems are still operational." In the treatment room, Finch was savoring his moment of triumph, watching Aveline's desperate face through the window as he prepared to deliver the lethal dose. Suddenly, an alarm different from the others began to sound, a deep, pulsing tone that cut through the cacophony. "Atmospheric anomaly detected," an automated voice announced. "Oxygen levels declining. Emergency ventilation engaged in 5 seconds." Finch's smile vanished. He looked up at the ceiling vents in confusion, then at the environmental control panel on the wall, which was flashing warnings. Before he could react, the access panel in the ceiling burst open, and Liam dropped into the room, landing in a crouch a few feet from Kellen's gurney. "What?" Finch started, but Liam was already moving, launching himself at the scientist with the desperation of a father who knew exactly what was at stake. They collided hard, sending the syringe flying from Finch's hand to shatter against the wall. Finch, though slighter than Liam, fought with the frenzied strength of a cornered animal. His elbow caught Liam in the ribs, driving the air from his lungs, but Liam held on, using his weight to pin the doctor against the medical cabinet. Outside, Aveline had found the emergency oxygen mask and was now watching the struggle through the window, helpless to intervene. She pounded on the door again, trying to distract Finch, to give Liam any advantage. Finch twisted in Liam's grip, his hand closing around a scalpel from a nearby tray. He slashed wildly, opening a shallow cut across Liam's forearm. Liam grunted in pain, but didn't release his hold. "You don't understand what you're interfering with," Finch hissed, his face contorted with rage. "This was never about money. This was about scientific immortality. My treatment works. It just doesn't work the way that fool Vance wanted it to." "You were going to kill him," Liam growled, trying to control Finch's armed hand. "You were going to kill her brother for a theory." "Not a theory, a certainty. The compound doesn't cure NDS. It accelerates it to its ultimate conclusion." Finch's eyes glittered with a fanatic's zeal. "When the brain shuts down completely, something else emerges, something transcendent. I've seen it in the test subjects." The revelation of Finch's true motivation, not greed, but a twisted scientific obsession, chilled Liam to the bone. This wasn't a corporate conspirator. This was a madman playing God with people's lives. With a surge of strength born of horror and parental rage, Liam finally wrested the scalpel from Finch's grip and shoved him hard against the wall. The doctor's head connected with the edge of a steel cabinet, and he slumped to the floor, momentarily stunned. Liam immediately turned to Kellen, checking the IV line. The original bag of fluid seemed untouched. Their replacement had worked. Whatever Finch had been about to inject would have been in addition to the treatment. The door to the treatment room suddenly hissed open, the emergency protocols finally overriding the lockdown. Aveline rushed in, still wearing the oxygen mask, her eyes wild with fear and hope. She went straight to her brother, her hand grasping his. "Kellen," she whispered. To Liam's surprise, Kellen's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening as they found his sister's face. "Ava!" His voice was weak but clear. "What's happening? Who is that?" His gaze shifted to Liam, taking in the janitor's uniform, the blood on his arm, the unconscious form of Dr. Finch on the floor. Before Aveline could answer, the room filled with security personnel, followed closely by FBI agents in tactical gear. The chaos of the next few minutes was a blur of shouted orders, medical staff rushing in to stabilize Kellen, and Finch being taken into custody, still raving about his scientific breakthrough. Through it all, Liam and Aveline remained beside Kellen's bed, an unlikely pair united by the desperate gamble they had just won. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of medical evaluations, FBI interrogations, and crisis management. Liam sat in a quiet corner of the hospital waiting room, his injured arm now properly bandaged, watching as Aveline handled the chaos with remarkable composure. She moved between her brother's room and the swarm of federal agents, attorneys, and board members who had descended upon Langford Memorial Hospital like locusts, each demanding answers she was too exhausted to give. Kellen had been transferred immediately for comprehensive testing, the medical team working frantically to determine if any of Finch's compounds had entered his system. Initial results were cautiously optimistic. They had interrupted the treatment before permanent damage could occur. The placebo switch had worked. Maya slept peacefully on the sofa beside Liam, her small body curled against his side, oblivious to the storm they had weathered. Mrs. Henderson had brought her to the hospital at Aveline's insistence. Both children with NDS under one roof, monitored by the same team of specialists. Graves appeared with 2 cups of coffee, handing one to Liam. The security chief looked as immaculate as ever, despite the day's events, though a new respect showed in his eyes when he looked at the janitor. Federal prosecutors are building their case, he reported quietly, mindful of Maya's sleeping form. Finch is still ranting about his breakthrough, but the evidence is overwhelming. Richard has already started negotiating a plea deal. Typical, Liam muttered. Graves nodded in agreement. Ms. Langford asked me to give you an update. Dr. Chen is cooperating fully. Turns out she was kept in the dark about most of Finch's real work, just told enough to follow orders. She's identified several other researchers who were part of the conspiracy. And the real research? Liam asked, the question that mattered most to him. Is there anything salvageable? The original compound design was legitimate, Graves confirmed. Finch corrupted it gradually over time, but we have the baseline formulation. The medical team is cautiously optimistic. Liam glanced down at Maya, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. The tremors in her hands had worsened over the past day, a visible reminder of the clock ticking down. How optimistic, he pressed. Maya doesn't have months to wait for clinical trials. That's why I'm here. Aveline's voice came from behind them. She looked exhausted, the perfect corporate facade cracking around the edges, but her eyes were clear and determined. May I join you? Liam nodded, and she took the seat opposite him, setting down a thick folder on the small table between them. A compassionate use authorization, she explained, opening the folder to reveal a series of medical documents and legal forms. I've expedited approval for both Kellen and Maya to receive the reconstructed compound under emergency protocols. The first treatments could begin as early as tomorrow. Liam stared at her in disbelief. How did you manage that? The regulatory process alone should take weeks. A tired smile flickered across her face. Let's just say I called in every favor I've accumulated in 20 years of corporate politics. Plus, the FBI is very motivated to show results after uncovering a conspiracy of this magnitude. She looked at Maya, her expression softening. The doctors want to run some preliminary tests on her tonight, if that's all right with you. Nothing invasive, just baseline so they can monitor her response to the treatment. Of course, Liam agreed immediately. Whatever they need. There's something else. Aveline slid another document across the table. This is a contract. As of this morning, you're officially employed by Langford Industries as a senior security consultant, reporting directly to Graves. The position comes with comprehensive health benefits, a substantial salary increase, and flexible hours. Liam blinked in surprise. I don't understand. You saved my brother's life, Aveline said simply. You risked everything, including separation from your daughter, to help a stranger. Those aren't the actions of a janitor, Liam. Those are the actions of someone who sees what needs to be done and does it, regardless of the obstacles. I was just trying to save Maya, he admitted, and in doing so, you saved Kellen. Aveline leaned forward, her voice low and intense. When you walked into my office yesterday, you said something I haven't been able to forget. You said, I can't fix what broke you, but sometimes naming the monster makes it smaller. You were right. The monster wasn't just Finch or Richard or the disease. It was my isolation, My belief that I had to carry everything alone. The vulnerability in her admission struck Liam deeply. This powerful woman, who commanded an empire from her glass tower, was acknowledging that her strength had also been her weakness. "You don't have to sign the contract now," she continued, regaining her composure. "Take time to think about it, but know that regardless of your decision, Maya's treatment is guaranteed. I've established a foundation in both her and Kellen's names to fund research into NDS. No other family will face this alone again." Before Liam could respond, a doctor approached, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Byrne, we're ready for Maya now, if you'd like to bring her." Liam gently woke his daughter, who blinked drowsily up at him. "Time for your tests, sweet pea." "Will it hurt?" Maya asked, the tremor in her voice matching the one in her hands. "No, honey. They just need to take some pictures of your brain." Maya nodded bravely, then noticed Aveline. "Are you coming too?" The question seemed to catch Aveline off guard. She looked to Liam, who nodded his permission. "If you'd like me to," she answered carefully. "Yes, please," Maya said, reaching out her small, trembling hand. "Daddy says you're helping fix what's making my hands shake." Something shifted in Aveline's expression, a crack in the formidable CEO's armor, allowing a glimpse of the woman beneath. She took Maya's hand with surprising gentleness. "I'm trying, Maya. We all are." Together, the three of them followed the doctor down the corridor, an unlikely family forged in crisis. Liam watched as Aveline explained the MRI procedure to Maya in simple terms. Her natural authority now softened with compassion. It was a side of her he suspected few people ever saw, the person behind the power. Later, after Maya had fallen asleep in the hospital bed assigned to her, Liam found Aveline standing by the window in Kellen's room. Her brother was also sleeping, the steady beep of the heart monitor a reassuring soundtrack. "The doctor says the first treatment can begin tomorrow morning," she said without turning. "They want to start with a low dose to monitor for adverse reactions." "Are you scared?" Liam asked, moving to stand beside her. "Terrified," she admitted, the word barely audible. "What if we're wrong again? What if this treatment is just another false hope? Then we try something else," Liam said simply. "That's what parents do, what siblings do. We keep trying until something works." Aveline turned to look at him, really look at him, not as the janitor who had stumbled into her office, but as the man who had fought beside her, who understood her fear because he carried the same burden. "When did you become so wise, Mr. Byrne?" "Around the same time you became so human, Miss Langford," he replied with a small smile. The distance between their worlds, once a vast, unbridgeable chasm, had narrowed to the space of a shared vigil, a common fear, a mutual hope. In the quiet of the hospital room, with the city lights twinkling beyond the window like distant stars, they stood together at the threshold of tomorrow, waiting for the dawn. 6 months later, Liam stood at the window of Aveline's office, looking out at the city below. The view was the same. Skyscrapers stretching to the horizon, streets teeming with the tiny figures of people going about their lives. But everything else had changed. He wore a tailored suit now instead of the grey janitor's uniform, though he still felt like an imposter in it sometimes. The security consultant position had proven to be far more than a gesture of gratitude. Aveline had genuinely valued his unique perspective on the company's vulnerabilities. Who better to identify security blind spots than someone who had moved invisibly through them for years? Behind him, Aveline sat at her obsidian desk, reviewing quarterly reports. The bottle of amber liquid that had been there the night they first spoke was gone, replaced by a framed photograph of Kellen, smiling broadly on the deck of a sailboat, his first outing after being cleared by his medical team. The Foundation Board approved the new research grants," Aveline announced, setting down her tablet. $3 million for Dr. Patel's team at Johns Hopkins, $2 million for the genetic mapping project at Stanford. Liam nodded, pride warming his chest. The Langford Byrne Foundation for Neurological Research had quickly become the world's leading funding source for NDS studies. What had begun as a desperate alliance to save 2 people had expanded into a mission to help thousands. Maya's teacher sent her progress report, he said, turning from the window. "Her handwriting is almost back to normal." She finished 3 full pages without a single tremor. A genuine smile crossed Aveline's face, no longer a rare sight, though still precious. "That calls for a celebration," dinner at my place tonight. Kellen's been asking when he'll see his art teacher again. The unlikely friendship between Maya and Kellen had been one of the many unexpected gifts of the past months. The shared experience of the disease and treatment had created a bond between them, with Kellen patiently teaching Maya techniques to manage her symptoms, and Maya's innocent determination inspiring him through the difficult days of recovery. She'd love that, Liam agreed. And she finished a new painting for him yesterday. A gentle knock interrupted them. Graves appeared in the doorway, his perpetually serious expression softened only slightly by familiarity. "The federal prosecutor is on line 1, he reported. "Final sentencing for Richard Vance is scheduled for next week. They want to know if you'll be making a victim impact statement." Aveline's expression hardened momentarily, the only visible remnant of the betrayal that had nearly cost her everything. "Tell them I'll submit a written statement. I've said all I need to say to Richard's face." Graves nodded and withdrew. In the months since the conspiracy had been exposed, Richard Vance had tried everything to mitigate his sentence, offering testimony against Finch, revealing other corporate conspiracies, even attempting to implicate Aveline in unrelated ethical violation. None of it had worked. The evidence was too overwhelming, his crimes too calculated. Dr. Finch had fared even worse. His delusional rants about scientific immortality had earned him a psychiatric evaluation and ultimately a placement in a secure facility for the criminally insane. The medical board had stripped him of his credentials, and his published research had been retracted from every major journal. "Do you ever regret it?" Liam asked after Graves had gone. "Taking me on as a partner in all this? Your life would certainly be less complicated." Aveline looked up at him, her gaze direct and unflinching. "I don't do regret, Liam. Not anymore." She gestured to the space between them. "All of this, the foundation, the research, even the public scandal, it's exactly what needed to happen. Not just for Kellen and Maya, but for me." She rose and joined him at the window, both of them looking out at the empire she had built. "I spent my entire life believing that power meant standing alone, that vulnerability was weakness, that I couldn't trust anyone to care about what mattered to me. And now," Liam asked quietly, "now I know better." Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining with the easy familiarity that had grown between them. "Oh, you taught me that." The journey from that first night, when a desperate janitor had dared to speak to a broken CEO, to this moment had been neither smooth nor predictable. There had been setbacks in the treatments, legal battles with the board, media scrutiny that threatened to derail everything. Through it all, their unlikely alliance had deepened into something neither could have anticipated. "Maya asked me something interesting this morning," Liam said, his voice thoughtful. "She wanted to know if you were my girlfriend." Aveline's eyebrow arched. "And what did you tell her?" "That it's complicated." He smiled slightly. "That sometimes people find each other in the strangest circumstances, and it takes time to understand what that means." "A diplomatic answer," she observed, the corner of her mouth lifting. "Worthy of a corporate executive. I've been learning from the best." The quiet moment between them was interrupted by Liam's phone chiming with a calendar alert. The school performance, he remembered. Maya's playing the lead in the class play. "We should leave now if we want good seats. I've had the car waiting for 20 minutes. Aveline replied, already gathering her things. Danai sent Graves ahead to save the entire front row. As they rode the private elevator down from the executive floor, Liam marveled at the symmetry of it all. 6 months ago, he had ridden this same elevator up to clean the offices of people whose lives seemed utterly removed from his own. Now he stood beside one of those people, as an equal, bound by shared battles and mutual respect. The elevator doors opened onto the main lobby, where Aveline's driver waited with the car. As they crossed the polished marble floor, a maintenance worker pushing a familiar cart nodded respectfully to Liam. He returned the gesture with genuine warmth, never forgetting where he had come from. "And do you know," Aveline said, as they settled into the back seat of the luxury sedan, "you never actually answered Maya's question." Liam turned to her, taking in the woman who had transformed from an untouchable figure of corporate power to someone real and present in his life, someone who had stood beside him through the darkest days of uncertainty, who had opened her world to include him and Maya, who had shown him that strength could exist alongside vulnerability. "What would you have me tell her?" he asked. Aveline considered the question, her usual rapid-fire decisiveness giving way to something more thoughtful. "Tell her that some things can't be fixed, only healed, and healing takes time." Her hand found his again. "Tell her that her father taught me that." The car pulled away from the curb, carrying them through the busy streets toward the elementary school where Maya waited. As the Langford Tower receded in the rearview mirror, Liam reflected on the strange, winding path that had brought them here. He had entered Aveline's office that night, believing he could offer temporary comfort to a stranger in pain. Instead, he had found a partner in an impossible fight, a champion for his daughter, and eventually, something he had stopped believing was possible after losing Alexandra, a second chance at connection. You once told me you couldn't fix what broke me," Aveline said softly, her voice barely audible above the sound of the city outside. "But you were wrong." Liam looked at her questioningly. "Some things aren't meant to be fixed," she explained. "They're meant to be transformed. What breaks us shapes us. The healing comes not from erasing the damage, but from finding someone who sees the cracks and still believes in what remains." As the car turned the corner toward Maya's school, Liam understood that their story wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about building something new from the fragments, something stronger, more resilient, and infinitely more precious than what had come before.